right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Katie Greifeld taking you through to that closing bell with the global simulcast. Massar and Tim Stenovec join us now. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, television, radio, our partnership with YouTube. Stocks on the back foot, well, unless you're a chip stock. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, Carol Massar, headed towards a record high. Pretty much everything in that index has been on a tear for the last month, and that includes Intel.
Yeah, that also includes Texas Instruments with, I think it's at a record, and I think it's up the most since about 5.5 years ago. I mean, Texas Instruments, who would have thunk? Last night we were focusing on Tesla, IBM, but Texas Instruments, really the mega outperformer. That stock up about 19%, and that also helping lift the overall semi-sector.
Well, we're focused on the equity market and certainly the companies that are reporting results. But, Katie, we're also focused on energy on a day when everybody's wondering what the latest out of the Middle East and the Strait of Hormuz will mean for the end of this, well, now becoming prolonged conflict.
Right.
Energy prices up again today, 105.70 for a barrel of Brent. WTI up 3.4% to $96.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Brent back above 105. Wondering if that's a little bit of an input when you think about this, a little bit of a pullback that we're seeing in the S&P 500. Of course, earnings being a nice distraction, but if we stay around these levels or potentially go higher, have to imagine that's going to impact some of the sentiment back on Wall Street.
Yeah, of course, chip stocks, at least for right now, have become one of the safe havens on Wall Street. Mike Contopoulos was talking about the narrow nature of the broad market rally, a broad market rally that's been on pause for the last, at least for this week here, and that includes today with the Dow Jones Industrial Average losing almost 200 points on the day, down about 0.4%. The S&P 500 also dropping about 0.4%, but still holding around 7,100. The Nasdaq down about 0.9%, and the Russell 2000 down about 0.4% as we wait, Carol, for those earnings from Intel.
Yeah, we are waiting. In the meantime, back to the S&P, almost an even split, Katie. 272 names higher in the Thursday trade, 230 to the downside, one unchanged.
Well, let's take a look at what we're seeing at the sector level as measured by our friend, the Circle. You can see a real patchwork display here. You had 5 sectors in the green, but the 6 sectors that were in the red are big ones. Information technology down about 1.5%, even though we did have a big day when it comes to the chip space. Financials, consumer discretionary also taking a dive. In terms of what managed to do well today, industrials higher by nearly 1.8%, and consumer staples higher by 1.7%. Carol, certainly looks defensive.
All right, as we await for Intel, expected to cross any moment, I'm just going to, again, go back to, we've got it. Let's go to
Intel
it.
earnings out right now. 1Q revenue, $13.6 billion. The street was looking for 12.4. That is a beat. Operating margin at 12.3%. The street was looking for 3.08. So that is also a beat as well. Adjusted EPS, 29 cents. The street was looking for 1 cent. That's a beat. Here's your forecast for the second quarter. The company says expect revenue in the range of 13.8 to 14.8 billion. The low end of that range is above the average of street estimates. They were looking for about $13 billion. Even. Data center activity in the most recent quarter also coming in at about $5 billion. That is above estimates. And I just want to also just put a finer note on this, Carol and Tim. When we talk about this idea of where this company goes next, that foundry business here, I just want to put a little bit of a focus on that as well. The headline in the most recent quarter, foundry revenue, $5.42 billion. The street was looking for 4.8.
Yeah, that's a big beat and higher by about 16% year over year. You can see in the press release the CFO saying that we remain focused on maximizing our factory network to improve available supply and meet our customer needs throughout the year. Tim, you take a look at this pop after hours, Intel higher by about 10%. This was a company that had a big bar to clear when it comes to recent expectations.
Yeah, I'm going back to the press release, like you were looking at, Katie. Agentic AI, the next wave of AI, will bring intelligence closer to the end user, a solid foundation in place. Lip-Bu Tan also talking about the deliberate reset on how we operate drove a 6th consecutive quarter, as you mentioned. I go back to the U.S. investment in this and what that means for this company, if this company would have been able to do this without the U.S. investment, where they are in this turnaround, what the exit of this investment looks like, if ever. I mean, we're in a unique time period where the U.S. citizen is a shareholder of this company, which I think, has done very, very well at least since the U.S. made that investment.
It's an interesting chapter in the history of U.S. capitalism, that's for sure.
Yeah,
right.
We're not even talking about Spirit Airlines. We won't go there.
It's also an interesting case in terms of just watching the market reaction. I mean, Intel is a stock that's up 80% year to date. It's up another 12%. Ian King out, who knows this company so well, out with a read-through on the earnings. He talked, looks like in an interview with the CEO, Lip-Bu Tan. And what Tan said was, there is huge demand. We are working very hard with our team to make sure we deliver, that we meet the demand, but we are still short because the demand keeps increasing from the customers. He said Intel delivered a solid result ahead of its projections, and he expects the strong demand for processors used in AI systems to expand. So the company is laser focused on increasing output from Intel's factories, which still cannot produce enough to fill all its orders. And this is where companies have gotten into trouble. The demand's there, but they can't meet it.
Well, this has always been the concern. I mean, even prior to Lip-Bu Tan was the idea that we knew the potential was there. The question is, can they fill it? They talk a lot about, in the press release and some of the headlines crossing the wire, lifting the CapEx plan for 2026 to even with last year. Also talking about how it's investing more in new machinery. It also points out, though, too, that it's not commenting, and thanks for putting up the Brady Brunch screen there, that it's not commenting on deals yet with external customers here. So, Tim, of course, you talk about some of the statecraft involved here, and the idea that, at least if we're talking about a homegrown sort of fab business here in the U.S., what the capabilities can be, but more importantly, can it start to actually show and prove on that sometime soon?
You're talking about the foundry business?
Yeah.
So let's go back to Ian's story because
shares are up 17% right now.
All right, the foundry services division, according to Ian, that's the company's factory unit, generated revenue of $5.4 billion, up 16%. The unit currently relies almost exclusively on Intel product divisions for orders. This isn't me. This is Ian King, who knows this company. Though it is seeking, as we know, outside customers. Its PC chip division had revenue of $7.7 billion, and the data center unit posting sales of $5.1 billion. All of those totals topping Wall Street estimates.
I also wonder if this is sort of indicative of a kind of the evolution of this AI data center space. And we were talking with an analyst a couple of days ago about the shift from GPUs to CPU, the focus from GPUs to CPUs, and the idea that this kind of benefits, if you will, kind of some of the older chip makers. I mean, I was kind of joking at the top of the show how old and boring Texas Instruments was, but you know, let's face it, Intel is basically the second oldest chip maker out there in the U.S. at least, still standing. But it's hot, Carol. We got to go.
Okay.
Yeah, don't dilly dally.
84%. It's up 84. It was up 84% last year. And this year it's up 81%.
Well, it's up 70%.
This is before today's
after hours trade.
Before after hours move.
Yeah, so break out your Texas Instruments calculator and figure that out.